Yeah. Like saying my fellow Saiyans, it's Gohan solo. So originally I was gonna do the Starter Deck Kaiba Yugi discussion video as one video. However, when I was doing it, it was going on for ages. It was it was like an hour and a half long, and I wasn't even finished. So I'm gonna separate it into two parts. The first just discussing sort of individual choices, the more important choices, I guess, and then in the second bit, just going through everything card by card and discussing things one by one. So before that, just gonna show that that Legend of Blue Eyes is done. So all of Legend of Blue Eyes is on the site. If you do it like this, there should be, well, there should always be 10 cards all the way up to 150, which is the amount that I've done so far. And this is the 1.5 patch, as we're calling it, because obviously it isn't the same as it was when it first started out, but it's not quite patch 2. Why is there only a few here? I'll have a look at that, but there should be all the cards up. I checked yesterday and it was all fine. So other than, oh yeah, I just did it again and they all came back. Does that need an image? Give that an image. But yeah, they're all up, so you can have a look. Play Legend of Blue Eyes format with both of the starter decks. I'm gonna be making a few changes just to give more space, because there are cards in like Starter Deck Yugi and Starter Deck Kaiba that don't necessarily need to be reprinted in Legend of Blue Eyes, in my opinion. Like some of them would be. So obviously you'd have your Blue Eyes, your Dark Magician, Red Eyes, etc. But for some of the other cards, they might not necessarily need to be reprinted in Legend of Blue Eyes as well. And by taking them out of Legend of Blue Eyes, it would free space for other things. That deck from earlier was so cool as well. This is sick, but that will be a discussion maybe for a Legend of Blue Eyes video. But yeah, so getting into the Starter Deck Kaiba and Yugi discussion. The idea was obviously that you could combine cards from both decks to make the best possible deck. Fairly standard. We wanted Blue Eyes and Dark Magician to be able to be played together, but not just fit in seamlessly and have that be the best deck. We wanted it to require a bit of thinking, and we also wanted people to be able to play a bunch of different things. But again, as always, there were problems. So firstly, we had the 50 card decks. As mentioned in the last video, we moved them around, decided to include a side to help introduce players into siding, as well as just making the 40 card decks, because it's better as 40 cards obviously compared to 50. Also wanted to move some of the more, I'm not going to say useless cards, but less productive cards into the side. So things like Castle Walls and Ukazi, Ancient Telescope in the case of Kaiba. So to balance the two starters, we moved spells around. Firstly, as I showed in the last video, the most powerful spells have this. You can only activate one of them per duel clause. It helps to balance them, means that you can't abuse them, but at the same time we don't have to restrict the power of the cards, and we don't even have to limit them necessarily, just because, you know, it gives players the option to play more than one of it if they want to, but they can only use one, obviously. In the case of the Kaiba Star originally, if you look at how it was done, the spells were much weaker than Yugi. So you had Dark Hole, Reborn, Remove Trap, and Fissure, but all of them were in Yugi's deck as well. But Yugi's deck also got Card Destruction, Change of Heart, and Last Will, which made Yugi's deck a lot more powerful. So to balance that, in our 2.0 versions of the starters, we decided to give Kaiba's deck Pot of Greed and Raigeki. Raigeki is just an upgrade of Dark Hole, but as well as that, if we're simulating a realistic reboot, it would be nice to give the players these two as well. It means that if you purchase Starter Deck Yugi and Starter Deck Kaiba, you would have the big six, I think. Would you have all of the big six? Let me check. You would have most of the big six. You'd have Pot of Greed, Raigeki Reborn, Change of Heart, Last Will. There's 5 of the big six. What's the only one that's not included? No, you would have all of the big six. That's in it, that's in it, that's in it, that's in it. No, yeah. So you'd have all 6 of the most important spells in the Legend of Blue Eyes format, which I think is pretty nice. Because if you only have one printing of certain cards, they can get super expensive. It just sort of future-proofs things in that regard. That's also just a nice thing to do for the players. It also makes the Starter Deck format a bit more interesting. In the case of Raigeki, it's a bit difficult to assess. We're still not sure as to whether having 2 AoE removal spells in the format is what we want. It makes it very swingy, but it provides a glut of removal options, which is quite nice, because otherwise things become heavily focused on the options that you do have. It was one of the reasons why we included Block Attack, was to compete with Fisher, otherwise Fisher's a bit too dominant. Similarly, by adding Raigeki, it means that players might not even have to play the smaller removal spells in the main deck. Might not even have to main Dark Hole in certain situations, so it adds nice options, and Pot of Greed adds something nice to the Starter Deck meta as well. So by moving the spells around, it helped to balance the 2 decks. Then one of the earliest changes was making Ultimate Offering a normal trap. It isn't quite a staple, but it's almost a staple. It's just everywhere, and as a continuous trap, it made it pretty difficult to deal with. If the opponent wasn't able to clear the Ultimate Offering, then the player who controlled it would get considerable tempo out of it, which wasn't what we wanted. It would just make Ultimate Offering one of those OP cards. So one of the earliest ideas I had was to make it a normal trap. It just makes it like a worse double summoning, really. You have to use it as a trap, but you can use it in your opponent's battle phase, which is useful in some situations. So making it a normal trap was one of our favorite changes. It really does make it quite fair. It's still one of the best cards in the game, certainly at this stage, but not every deck uses it. I think in the Starter Deck format, pretty much every deck uses it, but when you get to Legend of Blue Eyes, like the fusion decks don't need to use it. And then obviously the longer that the game goes on, the less Ultimate Offering becomes mandatory. So yeah, making it a normal trap was quite nice. It also synergizes with Dark Magician more as a normal trap, which was pretty cool. And speaking of Dark Magician, so we've got the Blue Eyes and Dark Magician. Obviously the boss monsters were quite important to us. So how did that work? Well, initially, because again we just wanted the boss monsters to not be useless, at first all of them just had their floater effects. So with Dark Magician it would be when it's summoned, target one trap in your grave, set on your side of the field, banish it when it leaves the field. That card can be activated this turn. And for Blue Eyes, it was just when this card is summoned, target one monster in the field, destroy it. Obviously, both of those effects sort of fit within their lore. Dark Magician is a card that is often used in the anime alongside traps, and Blue Eyes, it's killing monsters. That's its thing. The virtual engine of destruction or whatever. Like, virtually no one who has faced it has lived to tell the tale. So it fits within the lore. Also, Dark Magician being able to get a trap means that it works in the premium Dark Magician deck. Can use it with what is it? Magician Navigation, is that what it's called? Yeah, so the idea was that you could activate one of these, get Dark Magician would set this, you can then use another one, and it would get banished. Just lets you extend your plays like that. But yeah, when it was just those two effects, the problems were that you had no reason to tribute summon them necessarily, because they were 2 tributes compared to the 1 tribute monsters, which obviously are better now because they have effects. There was just no reason to play them, so we needed to give them an alternate summoning condition in order for them to be playable. And Dark Magicians was the first one we did. I just thought that it fit within the lore to have it be a sort of artifact type of card, where if it was popped, like, you can set it in your spell trap as a trap, and if it gets popped it comes out. Initially had it so that it didn't need to be during the opponent's turn, it was just whenever, but that was way too strong. Being able to proactively pop your Dark Magician on your own turn was pretty crazy, although later that inspired the Arcana Dark Magician design, because obviously Arcana's Dark Magician is meant to be a sort of evil, an antithetical version of Dark Magician. So I made that one usable during your turn, but then it doesn't set a trap out as a different ability. For this Dark Magician, yeah, we really liked the whole during your opponent's turn sort of thing. It makes Dark Magician really a gotcha sort of card, where within the context of this game, like, making a move trap a quick play was a recent change, but if you think about it with like MST as well, you could set Dark Magician, set MST during the opponent's turn. You have the ability to summon out the Dark Magician as a quick effect by popping it with your own MST. Then it will come out. If it gets a trap, it's a 2 for 2. It's kind of fair enough. It isn't blowout. It isn't OP. It's pretty okay. You can use it as a battle trick, but then it leaves it vulnerable to removal. You can wait until the end phase to use it, which is best for you as far as tempo goes, but then you're essentially down 2 cards until the point at which you do it. So it's not OP, we think. Well, it hasn't been OP so far. It's been pretty fair. But obviously if they pop it during their turn, the Dark Magician will come out. Again, saw that gotcha moment. It's reactively blowout, which is pretty cool. And conversely, you've got your Blue Eyes. So there was a point where Dark Magician had its additional summoning clause, but Blue Eyes didn't. What we found was that, obviously there was no reason to play Blue Eyes, so we gave it this this additional summoning condition, which was originally inspired by my design of Insect Queen, which has, if you control an insect monster, you can tribute summon this card in addition to your normal summon set. This is in Metal Raiders right now, but I'm going to be moving into the Legend of Blue Eyes block. We discussed that change a while ago. I think it makes sense. But yeah, obviously, she's the Insect Queen. It makes sense that you can bring her in as an additional summon. And obviously you can only gain this effect once per turn on them prevents abuse with Ultimate Offering. You can only use one of any of those effects per turn. So, yeah, it just made the design for Blue Eyes a bit easier. Now, if we're being strict to the Blue Eyes lore, it should probably be a light monster instead of a dragon type monster. However, we wanted dragons to be playable as a deck, and as far as Blue Eyes' status, like, it isn't the Insect Queen, it isn't the Dragon King, but it is the strongest of the dragons, and it's the one that, you know, people would always identify with as being the strongest one. So it makes sense that Blue Eyes sort of spearheads any dragon strategy moving forward. And this additional summoning condition made it a lot more playable when it otherwise wouldn't be. And it's nice to compare it to the Dark Magician because, again, Dark Magician is fair in some situations, fair when you're proactively bringing it out. When I say fair, it's still good, but it's limited in that, like right now, you need to have remove trap in order to use it. You need to have had one of the good traps in the grave in order to benefit off it. So it's a combo, and it isn't a clean combo. If you tribute summon it normally, then it's just a normal tribute summon, nothing amazing. So in the proactive ways of bringing it out, it's all very fair. It's at its most blowout when an opponent pops it at the wrong time, because if they're using remove trap, they should do it during your end phase so that the Dark Magician doesn't get its effect. But if they do it during their own turn, then they'll lose the remove trap, you'll get the Dark Magician, and you'll get a trap back. So that's a +2 for you. So it's reactively blowout. Blue Eyes is a lot more proactively blowout, and it's a lot more difficult to play around. But obviously its summoning is limited to your main phase, assuming that you're the Blue Eyes player, with one exception which I'll get onto with Soul Exchange. But it's difficult to play around because the Blue Eyes player can just, you know, summon a dragon, use Soul Exchange or Change of Heart, tribute summon in the Blue Eyes, and that's strong. But obviously both effects are mandatory for Blue Eyes and Dark Magician, so you can play around it by only having one monster on the field. Then if the Blue Eyes, you know, like if I summoned Winged Dragon, use Soul Exchange, tribute summon Blue Eyes would have to pop itself, which obviously isn't good. But it is good in situations where obviously you're able to pop your opponent's thing, you're able to do something like that, because outside of Trap Hole, it is just difficult to play around, and 3k is a lot. It's a lot in this meta, so yeah, they're both quite fair. You can use Blue Eyes reactively. I've made Soul Exchange a quick play, which I'll discuss in a bit. So in their turn, you can potentially Soul Exchange, Ultimate Offering into Blue Eyes, and then pop something. But again, that's a fairly conditional sort of play, and requires you to have a monster to tribute as well, or a second Soul Exchange, in which case, you know, the Blue Eyes is probably popping itself when it comes in. But this is proactively blowout, and the Dark Magician is reactively blowout, which we like. We like their designs. We think it sort of fits within their lore, and you can play both of them together, but it isn't easy to play both of them together because they both require specific synergies. Dark Magician requires remove trap, which at this point in the game is probably a staple already, but some strategies are able to accommodate Dark Magician more than other strategies. Well, Blue Eyes obviously needs some heavy dragon synergies in order to be at its most consistent. You can run it with a minimal dragon package, but it's at its best with an expanded dragon package, obviously. And the same with Dark Magician as far as it and traps. So later on in the game, you would be able to run just a Dark Magician control build where it's mostly traps and then occasionally Dark Magician, which is pretty cool. But yeah, those were the two boss monsters. Then as far as other things, so each deck has sort of three smaller monsters that represent it. In the case of the Yugi deck, it's Celtic Guardian, Feral Imp, and Winged Dragon, which all have Sangan effects based on type. While with Kaiba, again, his deck is more preoccupied with power. You have Large-In, you have Battle Ox, and you have Ryukishin Powered, which are all able to float by destroying or through destroying things. So Firstly, in the case of Yugi's, as mentioned in the previous video, the idea was that, Celtic Guardian could search Gaia, Feral Imp could search Summon Skull, and Winged Dragon could search Cursor Dragon, and they're all 2-1 or 2100 or less defense, so that Celtic Guardian could search Gaia, which was a recent change. We had them as 2000 before, but it didn't seem fair, frankly, that Feral Imp and Winged Dragon could search their Yugi cards, but Celtic Guardian had to search Swordstalker, and Swordstalker is still a pretty good card in this game, but we wanted them to search their bosses. Now these are understated in this matter, so they aren't perfect cards. They aren't as good as we thought they would be, as these cards tend to be in traditional Yu-Gi-Oh. But they obviously help the consistency of certain themes, and very useful in a lot of situations. And you can just have 3 Celtic Guardian, 3 Feral Imp, 3 Winged Dragon in a deck. That's what I choose to play in Legend of Blue Eyes format, but in this format, in the Starter Deck format, it certainly isn't the best. I will need to test it a bit more in Legend of Blue Eyes format. I don't think it's the best in Legend of Blue Eyes format. I think that certainly Skull Servant is so good in Legend of Blue Eyes format. We might have made the fusions a bit too powerful, but we'll have to reassess that, because they really weren't they weren't good before the 1.5 patch. Meanwhile, with Kaiba, you've got large in. When it's summoned, banish the top card of your deck. If it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add one of your face-up banished cards to your hand. So like I wanted to make large in one of the better cards, just as an homage to the fact that in the original 2002 format it was it was pretty much the best card, to be honest. Like, you might play Neo the Magic Swordsman and stuff like that, and I made Neo the Magic Swordsman good in this game as well, but yeah, I wanted Largin to still be one of the premier cards. Again, it's sort of iconic, people understand its value, so I wanted to give it an effect that still made it a premium card without making it an overpowered card, and still making it vulnerable to trap hole. So with this effect, I think it works with the lore. The idea is that you banishing the top card of your deck is essentially you casting a wish, and then if you get to destroy a monster by battle, the genie grants the wish, you get your banished card back. So yeah, that was pretty cool, and we like how Lodgin has been so far. It's probably the best level 4 or lower monster in the starter deck meta, but it isn't OP in every situation, and it gets power crept out pretty simply, so it's pretty good. Then Battle Locks, I gave it this effect more recently, but I think it's really good for it. It's one of the best invigoration targets. Invigoration is an important card in the early stages of the game. The fact that it's relatively understated as a 17, things like Lodging can get over it. It's good. It's a good effect, and it's not always the best, because obviously if you're summoning this, you attack into Celtic Guardian, Feral Imp, Winged Dragon, they're just gonna get a float. But if you swing over like a Giant Soldier of Stone or something that's very productive, or one of these things that needs to be destroyed by battle, so Battle Locks is a very good card, and again fits in with Kaiba's theme of power. Ryukishin Powered is one of our favorite designs. It's really good, but it's not OP because you need to have a theme for it. Obviously, the more darks you run in your deck, the better it is. It's still weak to trap hole, still loses to block attack, still loses to other things as well, but it's a very good card, very good card, and these two in particular make the Feral Imp Fiend package the best of the floater packages in the Legend of Blue Eyes meta. It's just fair enough, it's fine with us, but yeah, Ryukishin is really good as well. So you have those 3 monsters just to sort of represent where I'm going with those 3 decks, Celtic, Feral, and Winged. Demonstrate that Yugi is more preoccupied with consistency and sort of spending the time to accumulate particular combos and stuff like that. In my version of the anime, the sentiment in episode 1 when he uses Exodia is that the best puzzles take time to complete, while with Kaiba's it's more about immediate impact and power. So yeah, then just slightly following on from that, somewhat related to these, I wanted players to be able to play different versions of decks, different strategies. So the idea was that hopefully we would have a situation where you had fiends being good, you had dragons being good, and you had warriors being good. And I also wanted, at least 2 versions of each deck to be playable, as far as you could have like a good stuff version of a deck, and you could also have a more thematically invested version of those decks. So as I showed before, if I can get up, this is more the good stuff themed deck, whereas you can see you run all the best removal cards in the game. Change Magician's Navigation for my Dark Magician, actually. We were using Magician's Navigation as a proxy before, but yeah, so in this version you can just play like all the best cards, while you can also play a more theme invested version. So this is the Yami version, where you have particular synergies, Dragon, Zombie, and the spellcasters. You got like a little zombie package and some spellcasters in there as well, which is what we want. So right now Fiends are successful for that. With warriors, like, it's gone more in the earth direction, but you could also play warrior toolbox in theory. Certainly when Legend of Blue Eyes comes out, there's multiple ways to play warriors / earths, because you've got the fusions, and the fusions are arguably the most consistent in earths, because I've got 2 mystical sheep, and I made mystical sheep to an effect. I made all these fusion cards a bit stronger because the fusions need it, to be honest. But yeah, so you could play the fusion version. If it's warriors, you can play a fusion variant of the warriors. They have a particular sort of theme within Legend of Blue Eyes. Again, you can look up Legend of Blue Eyes and have a look at that. Dragons are the only thing where I'm gonna look at it a bit. Like, I want Flute of Summoning Dragon to be playable. So I have 2 ideas as to how I'm gonna do that, because right now Lord of D and Flute are basically the same, except Flute is nerfed. I'm gonna change that so that it's only the monsters that are summoned off its effect can't attack, rather than you can't conduct your battle phase. It's a bit oppressive. But yeah, there are 2 ways that I might go about this. Either making Lord of D a sort of floater for Flute. When I say a sort of floater, I mean it will be something like, when it's summoned, you can send a Flute of Summoning Dragon from the deck to the grave, and if you do special summon 2 dragon type monsters from your hand, they can't attack during the turn you activate this effect. And then I'd also give it its original dragon prevention destruction effect. Or even, I'd make a Flute of Summoning Dragon a quick play. I think the first thing we'll do is make Flute a quick play and see how that goes, because the advantage to that is that obviously it lets you play around Trap Hole, but we'll see. We'll have to see. It might even be fine just as it is, but because giving Blue Eyes the additional summoning clause, and Trihorned has that as well, but for darks, yeah. And Lord of D is a dark, so that's convenient. But yeah, we want 2 versions of every deck to be playable, basically. So you could play a good version, like good stuff version of it, but you could also play a themed combo version of it. And we're almost there right now, so that's pretty good. And Other than that, it's also making things quick plays that weren't previous quick plays. So obviously, you know, if we made Fisher a quick play, that would be insane. You have to be careful making removal quick plays. But for things that aren't straightforward removal, making them a quick play is a very easy way to make them better when they otherwise wouldn't be. So, yes. In the case of, yeah, so something like Inexperienced Spy, I gave it this effect, and it was a normal spell. I think it fits within the theme. Obviously, you know, Inexperienced Spy, it's just a weaker Mind Crush. By making it a quick play, it actually made it a lot more playable as a side deck card. It helps to punish the floaters, which is okay, because I mean the floaters still become, well, the floaters still float. Like if I add something off Celtic Guardian and then you Inexperienced Spy it, the Inexperienced Spy is a 1-for-1. So it's still weaker than Mind Crush. It's still weaker than D-Spell, which has a Mind Crushy effect but is stronger for spells. But by making it a quick play, it actually makes it playable well, it might still be playable as a normal spell, but obviously it's nowhere near as good. Same with something like D-Spell. I gave it this effect, very different from its original effect. Again, just makes it more of a mind crushy thing for spells. By making it a quick play, it actually makes it really quite usable. If we're talking about like fusions in Legend of Blue Eyes or something, then this just really hurts that deck, being able to you know, crush all the polys is super duper strong. And I guess like Remove Trap as well. Remove Trap wasn't too good before it was a quick play, but making it a quick play was an important change to the meta, because it both enabled and disabled Dark Magician. Before then, you had normal spell, Remove Trap, and Trap Master, which I've changed from being a flip to just being an ignition effect. Trap Master was one of the premium cards before the change, because you weren't playing Dark Magician because you had no way to proactively pop it. So by making Remove Trap a quick play, it meant that firstly you could proactively pop your own Dark Magician before Mystical Space Typhoon, which is released in Starter Deck Pegasus, I believe. So MST is only in the next set anyway, and a lot of my card designs were informed by cards that were coming out. Remove Trap isn't on the same level as MST by any means, even as a quick play, because obviously it can whiff if it's hitting a spell, and it's just a -1. So it's fair enough to make it a quick play. By making it a quick play, again, you can proactively pop your Dark Magician in their turn, but it also lets you pop their Dark Magician in their end phase if they set it, which previously you didn't have the ability to do. Trap Master would always trigger it, and normal spell Remove Trap would always trigger it. So for us, that just added something interesting to the game, which did by making it a quick play. And you know, it'd be the same with things like Block Attack is another one. I'd say Block Attack and Remove Trap are probably the two strongest quick plays that we've introduced, because Block Attack as a normal spell is very weak, but by making it a quick play, it becomes like a budget Book of Moon almost. Like it does a fair few of the things that Book of Moon does. Can stop an attack. It can help mitigate tempo in certain situations. So yeah, we were very happy with that change. Making it a quick play was very good. And then, as aforementioned, we introduced Block Attack and Stop Defense in these structure decks, or these starter decks, I mean, more to do with the format rather than to do with the starter decks themselves, because again, we found that things were a bit linear and heavily focused on Fisher. Like, not every deck played Fisher, but if you could, you would. Like, there wasn't much reason not to. Now with block attack, it creates more questions as to whether you're going to play. Like, block attack is probably better than Fisher in a lot of decks, but block attack is an inherent -1, and in return for the fact that it's an inherent -1, you get the quick play tempo element of it, which is fair enough. It adds something unique to the game. But all of those came from you know, making those cards quick plays, and we didn't even need to change most of their effects. You know, like block attack has the same effect, stop defense has the same effect, remove trap has the same effect, soul exchange has the same effect. I made soul exchange a quick play recently, only so that you could use it with ultimate offering in their turn, and that's it really, because that's the only thing that making it a quick play really does. Doesn't really do too much outside of that. Like, yeah, sure, you can chain it to MST in certain situations, but you know, the the player using MST shouldn't use it so frivolously in a game like this where there's so much that can punish you for it. So really the only thing that making it a quick play does is that, you know, you can't, sorry, that you can use it with ultimate offering. So again, going back to flute, maybe make that a quick play, but the point with that is that, you know, you don't have to necessarily change things too much in order to change things. Like, again, with the power spells, they can mostly have the same effects, but the once per duel clause sort of restricts them. And in a similar fashion, you know, like remove trap, pretty sure this is the same effect as the original card. Block attack, stop defense, same effects as the original cards, but by making them quick play, you make them a lot better where they otherwise wouldn't be. So yeah, I'd say that's pretty much it for part 1. In part 2, I'll just go over every card, discuss sort of my feelings on them and why I decided to make them the way that they are, and yeah, hopefully then that should preview the Starter Decks nicely, and some of you will want to, you know, go check them out again. You can type SDK0 into all cards, and that's all the Starter Deck Kaiba ones. Type SDY0 into there, and that's all the Starter Deck Yugi cards. The only exceptions being block attack and stop defense, because I haven't added that code into there. But I'll probably be doing that over the weekend. Again, I've got all of Legend of Blue Eyes up, and I've got most of Metal Raiders up. So once I've finished getting Metal Raiders up, I'm going to go back and change certain things as far as the code on the cards, or the set numbers, I mean. So as you can see with like Pale Beast that comes out in Metal Raiders, I can be like, well, do I want to reprint Pale Beast and Metal Raiders? Do I want to reprint Hane? I might want to reprint those two. I don't know if I want to reprint Urabi. I don't know if I want to put that in Starter Deck Pegasus as well. So yeah, it just gives us the ability to make those changes, add some more cards. There are cards that are sort of in the waiting list, I guess. So Cyber Commando with its new effect, so sick. Seiryu. This could potentially be in Starter Deck Kaiba, because in my anime reimagining, it's in it's Mokuba's signature card. I think that's a nice little bit of theme, because in the original anime it was Bandit Keith who used it. He uses it against Yugi at the start of season 2, and it's just like, oh really? You're wasting such a cool card on Bandit Keith. Same with like Zera the Mant and stuff like that. But the Warrior of Zera stuff, that, I mean, that's a later discussion. That's got a theme. This as well. I got Queen of Autumn Leaves in here as well. Yeah. So those are a few cards that I'm going to you know, add to the Legend of Blue Eyes block. So I'll take some things out, be similar in Metal Raiders. But yeah, other than that, that's the end of part 1. So Catch you in a bit.